The United States has spent over $1.3 trillion on welfare in 2023. That's over 15% of the federal budget, and with all that money spent, we don't have anything to show for it. Poverty rates have risen or stayed the same in most places in the country. Most of this money goes towards 3 public aid programs, that being Social Security, Medicaid, and food stamps. While these programs do help many people, there is still a vast majority of Americans who are still gripped by poverty. The ineffectiveness of these systems is even further amplified by the introduction of AI and other automation technologies, along with the economic damage that was done by the COVID-19 pandemic. American society has progressed through cultural and technological evolutions, which is why it's so critical that welfare policies follow suit. The old programs that we've been using for many decades just don't cut it anymore, and they might not be what the American people need, which is why it's so crucial that new ideas like UBI and cash transfer programs are explored. The American people face many different issues, but whether it's inflation or healthcare costs, it almost always leads back to the issue of poverty. Because of this, poverty is generally considered as the most impactful issue facing Americans today, and current welfare is just not cutting it. That's why new options are being explored. For this video, I just want to focus on cash transfer and UBI programs, but this is just one of many popular new ideas that are being proposed as replacements to current welfare. Whether UBI is a perfect solution or whether it should be implemented is not up to me, but it is important for you to understand what UBI is since so many politicians are talking about it. Anyway, UBI, or Universal Basic Income programs, have shown some promise to help decrease poverty rates in the United States. Despite what you might think, we've actually seen many examples of UBI on the federal level in the US. A major example of this can be seen when the US Census Bureau reports supplemental payments and social assistance program expansions early in the COVID pandemic lifted 11.7 million people out of poverty in the United States. An increase in income for the average American was critical to the revitalization of the American economy following the post-pandemic economic recession. As people had more disposable income, they increased spending and investments. This new opportunity for economic growth not only gave people the ability to spend more money, but also to pull themselves out of poverty and even climb the socioeconomic ladder in America. Providing people with a basic guaranteed income may give them the security and ability to spend money at local businesses, go to school, and save up for future investments. These activities contribute to the economy, indirectly decreasing poverty rates and increasing the standard of living for all. Another potential benefit for increased cash spending for most people is more avenues for small businesses to start up. Contrary to what many may believe, small businesses support relatively greater portions of the economy than large corporations. In fact, according to Stefan Goetz, director of the Northeast Regional Center for Rural Development and professor of regional and agricultural economics at Penn State, small, locally owned businesses and startups tend to generate higher income for people in a community than big, non-local firms, which can actually depress local economies. This isn't just speculation. Reports from the U.S. Office of Advocacy report that small businesses in the U.S. account for about 44% of the country's economic activity, which is over $6 trillion US. Small businesses don't just increase overall economic volume, but they also produce about 66% of all the jobs in the country. Innovation also stems from small businesses, where entrepreneurial thinking and unique perspectives are critical to beating out the larger, more money-flush corporations. The problem starts with recent investments in automation and AI, which has completely changed how large corporations operate their businesses. From cashiers to manufacturers, automation has cost millions of jobs and removed opportunities for young laborers to gain experience. This is where small businesses truly shine, creating opportunities for young workers while maintaining a higher job retention rate. Since automation, robotics, artificial intelligence, and other labor-reducing technologies are expensive, investing in these systems is generally not cost-effective for small business owners. But that's just my take. Let's see what someone with more expertise in the field has to say about this. Good morning, man. Would you please introduce yourself to the camera for me?
Yeah, my name is Juan Pablo Gutierrez, also known as JP. I am a recent alum from UW-Madison, University of Wisconsin, and I got my bachelor's degree in political science and life science communications, and I have certificates in history and public policy. In the future, I want to get into intellectual property law, which deals with AI and technology and branding and and like protecting people's rights. And the reason I want to get into this is because AI is such a threatening tool to people's brands and their specific properties that they have. So now that AI is advancing so much, I'm very interested in protecting people's stuff online. And I took classes all in Wisconsin about AI all the time and misinformation, and I've learned a lot about the dangers, but also the uses, the possible uses of artificial intelligence.
All right, man, with those questions out of the way, I have a couple questions for you. Starting with, do you think that small businesses will be affected in a negative or in a positive way by automation that's been happening recently?
I think if we use it correctly and not abuse AI technology, I think it could be something that's very positive for small businesses. For example, these businesses don't have the money or the time to pay people to do certain things that AI can't do for them. For example, you're a small business working and you need to market something, and you're like, let me just AI generate this image instead of spending money on a graphic designer or taking time to do it yourself. You could make, as AI technology develops, it could help you and your small businesses to do things that you wouldn't be able to do before. Of course, you should probably market as AI generated, but it should get the job done, in my opinion. And this is for small businesses. And for example, if you need to code something in a small business, you have no experience coding, AI in the future is going to start doing that for these small businesses. So I think in the long run, depending on your small business, I think it could really help you and excel. It just needs to be in a controlled environment, if you know what I'm saying, like something that it doesn't get out of hand. And we have to also market that it's as AI if you're using it for marketing, or you're going to have to, just credit the people that the AI takes from eventually. So, yeah, but that's what I think. I think in the long run, it could actually help small business. I'm not sure if that's a hot take, but that's what I see in the future.
No, that's definitely not a hot take. It's definitely a question that we don't know the answer to yet. So it's nice to hear it from somebody who has a little bit more experience in the field with this kind of thing. So according to the International Monetary Fund, up to 60% of jobs in the United States will be affected by the introduction of AI and automation. What are your thoughts on this?
What I believe is that I think the main effect is going to be it's going to hit people are going to lose their jobs in different sectors, for example, and it's going to hit differently. So when we have these coding jobs, I think my dad's he's in that computer business, and he's talking about the uses of AI all the time, and he's saying that he's scared because AI is going to be able to code everything and anything just by putting it in a prompt. So I feel like those jobs are going to start getting very heavily impacted. But I feel like if we treat AI as a tool, that we're going to have to adjust and create new jobs to make up for those losses. I think that's going to start happening as people that know how to use AI or know how to correctly use it are going to start getting jobs, and then the people jobs are being replaced are going to have to adjust, for example. And I think companies need to help these people that are going to lose their jobs and train them in different things or in ways that help them use AI as a tool instead of being completely replaced, because it could be dangerous if everyone just gets replaced completely by automation. Instead, we should help those people get trained in those certain areas so they won't be able to lose their jobs. And I think it's going to happen. I mean, like, with new technology happens, it always, people's jobs get lost, but at the same time, more jobs are going to be made, and there's new sectors that are going to start being opened up because of AI.
So I know you mentioned that industries could be potentially opening up more jobs in response to AI and automation, but many people that are very, very influential in the industries of automation and AI have raised concerns about jobs not opening up at the rate that they will be taken away. People like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, and especially Elon Musk, has put out many proponents for UBI as a solution to this. When nobody has jobs, or at least the majority of people have no jobs, it might be the only form of welfare that can keep a population happy and maintained.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I think that's just a cop-out by Elon Musk. I mean, UBI sounds good. Everyone gets their universal basic income, but whenever we talk about AI replacing jobs and us having an income and to stay alive, it's just we're just letting AI completely take over. So that's a dangerous way of looking at it because that's like we're not using it as tools, then we're using it as replacements. If we don't put any regulations down or things that help control this growth or help the rate of it taking jobs, we have to use it more as a tool instead of a complete replacement. And the way Elon Musk talks about it is as a complete replacement. The thing is, when you talk about this idea of it completely replacing our jobs, and we have to sit down and do nothing and just get universal base income, what does this remind you of? It reminds me of Wall-E. Remember all those robots going around and just like doing everything while we just sat on our asses all day and did nothing, where our minds literally become mush and do nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a future we want to avoid, right? That's Elon Musk's universal basic income future, is just we don't do anything and we just get the basic minimum while AI does everything else. It's not a future I want to live in. I think AI is a really powerful tool that we need to use and harness, but also regulate so we don't get completely replaced. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, I certainly, for one, don't want that future. I definitely want to have a job, but it is kind of scary to know that even with all this regulation and stuff that's going on, it might not be fast enough, as AI is coming out at an alarming rate. I mean, we've all seen the AI video has gotten much better, coding has got much better, everything has gotten way better, and as all these programs start to develop more and more, it might be irresistible for big companies to just replace the human element completely.
I understand that, and that's why I've been researching this as ways to help regulate artificial intelligence, but the Biden administration actually drafted a artificial intelligence bill of rights, that these are rights that every company and every person has to follow while using artificial intelligence. Of course, it hasn't been passed, but it's a blueprint that's currently in government, so they're thinking about it. And I know the government takes forever on things, and we need to hurry stuff up. But if it's a bipartisan movement in the future, we could actually get this bill of rights to help regulate AI in the future, and eventually, hopefully, with that bill of rights, we could start adding amendments, like AI amendments, to that, bill of rights that they're trying to make.
While automation is definitely a major issue that needs to be addressed, it's not the most significant issue that's facing the country today. According to the USDA, an estimated 44.2 million people in America face food insecurity. This is a staggering number, and despite its seemingly insurmountable size, there is evidence that this statistic can be fixed. During the Hamilton Project, a project which in the researchers' own words seeks to advance America's promise of opportunity, prosperity, and growth, it was found that during the first week after pandemic electronic benefit transfers, aka stimulus checks, the rate of children not getting enough to eat declined by 11 percentage points, which is more than a 30% reduction from previous figures. Food security for people in need, especially children, is a massive factor when considering what type of welfare this country should be using. This is all well and good, but it's important to remember that welfare has its purpose, and that purpose is to efficiently use government money to increase the standard of living for all, especially the less privileged among us. Much of the evidence I've presented so far is not pure UBI, but a form of it called cash transfers. While they share similar goals and methods, it's crucial to understand the differences between them and to find which is better, or even if a mixture of both is best for the United States government to implement on both federal and state levels. The main difference between a more traditional UBI system and targeted cash transfers is in the recipients. Targeted cash transfers aim to only assist those who are under a certain economic threshold, while UBI is an entirely indiscriminate system where everyone, from the richest to the poorest, receives the opportunity of financial aid in the form of supplemental income. Targeted transfers have to rely on different systems, such as income tax and spending tracking, in order to find who's eligible for assistance, and these methods could be a lot better. The problem is, many people do not work for an employer who pays through direct deposits, but they may be paid with cash or other benefits. Another problem would be that many do not own bank accounts, do not own a home, and cannot afford to go to school, making it challenging to guarantee that those who are truly in need will receive the help that they should be receiving. This is a non-issue with UBI, but that does not make that the perfect solution either. Since UBI will be available for everyone, virtually no one will miss the benefits that could be provided through UBI programs. However, those who do receive help will most likely receive a smaller amount of aid, as the number of people receiving assistance will massively increase, thus massively increasing the cost per person. For many, these small payments might not increase their quality of life at all, and it also brings up the issue of money, as paying for over 300 million Americans to receive UBI would be insanely expensive. Some potential solutions are commonly suggested to reduce this problem of cost, such as restricting welfare access to those who comply with different requirements, such as drug tests, employment, or compulsory K-12 public schooling for themselves or their children. Another solution that could be introduced would be the introduction of a tiered system, like income tax brackets, where the more someone makes, the less that they will receive in aid. One final key factor between UBI and cash transfers is that there's evidence that both reduce income inequality significantly. This direct redistribution of wealth directly through welfare allows those who live with less income to reach a standard of living closer to the average, decreasing perceived and real inequality across entire communities and cities. Inequality among a community is not just an issue for those affected, but it affects entire population centers. According to an extensive study done by Dr. Mohammed Khalid Answer and multiple of his colleagues, there are strong links between income inequality, poverty, and violent crime. But even without these studies, the connection between income inequality, poverty, and violent crime can be seen virtually at every city and community throughout the United States. Take the city of Naperville versus the city of Riverdale, for example. Both are Chicago suburbs that share many surface-level similarities, yet the violent crime rate in Riverdale is over 4 times as high as that in Naperville. Unsurprisingly, the average income in Naperville is about 4 times as high as the average income of Riverdale. And this obvious correlation is not unique to just these two cities. Reducing income inequality is not just a matter of expenses, but of crime reduction and community revitalization. So with the pros and cons clearly laid out for both UBI and cash transfer programs, it's clear that if anything is implemented, it should be a mixture of both systems, and this could vary from state to state or even city to city. But regardless of what type of welfare is implemented, UBI or not, the evidence is clear. A good welfare system could help pull people out of poverty, revitalize the economy, decrease food insecurity, and even reduce violent crime rates. UBI is certainly not a perfect solution, and many issues have been presented with this program. One potential flaw with UBI is the idea that UBI removes the incentive to work. While full-blown income replacement has yet to be implemented on a scale large enough to study, many studies have been done, and they show varied results from UBI in relation to labor incentives. One such study is the SEED, which is the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration. The researchers working on this project found that 28% of people receiving their UBI program had full-time jobs at the beginning of the experiment. 1 year later, that figure jumped to over 40%. On the other hand, an infamous UBI trial in Finland showed zero relation between work incentives and UBI. While the average employment rate was technically higher, it was not statistically nor practically significant. Many experts have expressed concerns that the structure behind the experiment is flawed, but the results are important to understanding UBI. Another big issue with cash transfers, and especially UBI programs, is the issue of cost, as $10,000 for every American would cost over $3 trillion every single year. This is a massive problem that might not be able to be overcome. Andy Stern, president of the SEIU and author of Raising the Floor, discussed a few proposed ways to cover the cost of UBI in his book. These strategies included canceling existing welfare, cutting military spending, phasing out tax expenditures, and implementing a financial transaction and sales tax at the federal level. Another popular proposal is that the costs would be covered through a 10% value-added tax and replacement of the current welfare programs. Regardless of how a UBI program would be funded, if at all, it's important to avoid some unintended consequences that could potentially come with this fundraising, the first of which would be an increased cost of living in poor communities around the country, which would completely negate all the positive benefits that could come potentially from a UBI program. Multiple fundraising strategies could lead to this massive problem, and make things even worse potentially, especially increased taxes on income, housing, carbon emissions, and sales. Another factor that must be considered is American geopolitical strategy. Decreasing spending on things like the military could lead to a decline in American foreign influence, potentially affecting trade, alliances, and defense capabilities. If an effective welfare system is to be implemented, UBI or otherwise, it's important to keep a balance between expenditure cuts, taxation increases, and resource reallocation, or else we might just end up right where we started. The US has claimed the title of greatest country in the world for many decades, and for many that still may be true, but there's no denying the unmistakable decline that has gripped the country in recent years. With current poverty rates over 11.5%, housing prices increasing, inflation outpacing wage increases, and crime rates swelling across the country, the call for change and growth has never been more prominent. Welfare is not a perfect or permanent fix to these problems, but leaving those in need, especially when they need their fellow man most, is not the solution. Whether it's UBI or cash transfers, something has to change so that we can more efficiently use our money and help more of those in need. Political polarization and misinformation has slowed down progress significantly, but that doesn't make change impossible for this country. Politicians and other people in power have the influence to change the status quo and bring about a brighter future for all of us. But ultimately, in a country of the people, by the people, for the people, it's up to the voting people among us to support those who will revolutionize America and reclaim the title of greatest country in the world for good.